I know most of what I was told was to work around partnership and the R&D blueprint for Africa. I will try to answer some of the questions given to me. Next slide. I thought to give a little bit of background and context. If you move to the next slide, this is the directory that I run. Consists of 3 major divisions. We do a lot of work on health system research, implementation research, knowledge management, developing policy. We also run the Journal of Public Health in Africa. But I know for the purpose of this, we'll narrow down on the division of R&D and clinical trials. So we'll spend some time discussing. Next slide. So if you look at the division of clinical trial and R&D, we have 2 major missions. It has been fully established that research response is now a critical part of all outbreak response. So one of the things we do is to work with partners to use research to inform response. So if you look at the lower slide in the middle, you see the number of research that we are coordinating. One of my roles, along with WHO Afro, is to coordinate all of the outbreak research response on the continent. Our second job is to enhance R&D ecosystem to support local manufacturing. Next slide. So Africa is very vulnerable to outbreaks due to the fact that our R&D capacity is very limited. If you look at the slide on the 2014 Ebola outbreak, you will see that by the time we started the first clinical trial in Africa, the outbreak had burned themselves out. People had died in the process. If you fast forward to the 2022 Ebola, we saw that medical countermeasure came late. Again, the outbreak had to take care of itself. We're not dealing with mpox. We have seen increasing cases, and there are still issues of lack of medical countermeasures, diagnostics, vaccines. So I give you a list of some of the common threats to Africa, and you see the challenges we have with vaccines and treatment, whether it is chikungunya, it's mpox, Rift Valley fever, Lassa fever. Africa is still at the tail end, so it means that we are a vulnerable continent. Next slide. Next slide, please. This is the story, the sad story. The thing about mpox that is today raging across the continent is that it has been around for over 50 years, but it's not a disease of the West or the prosperous nation, so we are still struggling to find vaccine therapeutics. There is no known therapeutics for mpox, despite the fact that it's been around for over 50 years. Next slide. So basically, I just show you that Africa has a serious issue with health security because of our limited investment in R&D for medical countermeasure. But the other side I'd like to flip is to let people to know that there are benefits for investing in R&D in Africa. Next slide. This is the GDP across countries in Africa. And if you look at the right, you see that in 2023, India made $50 billion from pharmaceutical industry. If you look at how much India pharmaceutical industry made in 1 year and compared to our continental GDP, you see that it covers most of some of the countries that we have on the continent of them. Next slide. And I think India has been a little bit smart. This is that look at how Africa population is projection in our population at different time period. In 2040, will be one in 3 young person will be an African. At the same time, India has projected that by 2030, they will make around 130 billion from pharmaceutical, and by 2047, they will make 450 billion. And you see that the bulk of the market will be in Africa. So Africa, not only do we think that R&D has an economic transformational ability, and in addition to health security, but on both ends, Africa is still at the tail end. Next slide. Being mindful of the time. So one of the key things I asked on this panel to look at our activities, our vision and partnership. How are we supporting clinical trial ecosystem? Next slide. So essentially, for the first time on mpox, Africa and WHO met and decided to develop the continental incident management system. WHO Africa City will coordinate all of the response. And in that way, they also created the research response pillow that are co-lead with WHO because the question was partnership. We've developed the clinical trial R&D blueprint, working along with CEPI, NIH, and the World Health Organization, and many other partners. So now we also develop a dashboard to track research. One of our major deliverables is research coordination, which has never happened before in previous outbreak. So that's just the slide I'm showing here. Next slide to show partnership. We came together, we developed the R&D blueprint to give us guidance on how we can do research during outbreak. Around the 21st of August, we had a virtual meeting where we brought researchers from the continent and funders and donors together to do an evaluation of how far we've gone in terms of research. Now we are developing the R&D 2.0. It will be up very soon. We are developing the 2.0, talking about partnership and coordination across multiple partners. Next slide. Now we want to look at some actual collaboration that we are driving, North-South, South-South collaboration during outbreaks. Next slide. So we have this project, and we started engaging with Gilead Science, the pharmaceutical company in the country, company in California. And we planned that if there was an outbreak, we'll quickly move the antiviral drug to the country. And 2 months after our discussion, Rwanda confirmed their cases of Marburg. Next slide. Because we have pre-engaging relationship with Gilead Science, and because of our presence in Rwanda, within 7 days, we're able to move 5,100 vials of the antiviral drug that was used extensively. So indeed, building partnership can really help to accelerate research response during outbreak. And this was an indication. Our DG working with the Minister of Health, and we're able to show that we can demonstrate that partnership is critical for research response. Next slide. We're having a big partnership that is ongoing between a French NGO, group of African scientists, and Africa CDC called PANTA. If you turn the next slide, basically we're trying to build this network of African scientists to keep a warm base in the event of outbreak. We're going to be able to do clinical trial during outbreak, because clinical trial during outbreak is critical for 3 main reasons. You want to stop the further spread of the disease. 2, you want to save as many persons. And 3, you want to prepare for the next outbreak. As a result of this partnership, if you turn the slide now, we've launched this very big trial. The first trial we are now running in Africa, the only therapeutic trial on Mpox in the DRC. Next slide. So we have this trial that is ongoing in the DRC that we are recruiting patients for Mpox. It will be the only therapeutic trial. I'm now in Uganda because we are setting up a new initiative. Africa CDC working with African scientists from multiple countries across the continent to see how we can look at our natural therapeutics and make them scientific enough. I just came from Brazil. Brazil's major ability to produce drugs is from their natural product. We are in Uganda for the next 3 days to look at this. But this is another collaboration among countries, DRC, Kenya, South Africa, looking at drug formulation, antiviral formulation, using the strength of each of the university. For example, the University of Northwest in South Africa is good at nanotechnology. So once the product is tested in Kenya, it will move to South Africa for nano formulation. The renal product was developed in the DRC. So those are the kind of collaboration we are driving on the continent. Next slide. We see one again. If you move to the next slide, we are looking at a antiviral that was developed, identified in, next slide, please. That was identified in Senegal. And then some of the initial work was done by a Senegalese doctor working with traditional healers. The specimen was taken to Canada by an African diaspora who is coming to this meeting. And we are going to try to work together to test it. Next slide. It has been shown to have antiviral properties. If you turn the next slide, please. This new drug that has been tested, there will be a collaboration between the Canadian group, the diaspora African, the group from Senegal, and the group from the Council on Research in South Africa to test this drug for a preclinical trial. Next slide. Because of time, I won't go in much detail, but we're just telling you that we're bringing together. These are all ongoing collaboration we are building across the continent. For example, we're trying to repurpose antiviral, working with Emory and University of Cape Town to be able to repurpose the drugs against, for now, we're trying to prioritize chikungunya and other diseases. So next slide, I will just move forward. Now, the R&D blueprint that was developed by Africa CDC in Iowa, Nepal, the clinical trial ecosystem. Just signal me if I have to close. Next slide, please. Oh, I think I'm finished. My time is over. Basically, these are, so what we have been doing is to accelerate the R&D ecosystem. Here was a meeting of African scientists in Addis Ababa. We brought 132 of them to craft this document. Next slide. I will just, yeah. And we developed critical framework for the continent. Collaboration framework, research and development framework has been developed and launched by some ministers of health, minister of science. Next slide. I will close when you're ready. Just let me know. We published some of our findings in Lancet to show that the African scientists are coming together to lead coordination. Next slide, please. And then this is the governance structure that was published, taking R&D at the highest level to have a president and the ministers of health and science to lead research on the continent. Next slide. 1 minute, I can close. And so these are publications from that meeting. Next slide, please. Yes, so the key point is that one of the governance structure was to know what exists on the continent. So with funding from CEPI and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we are now mapping out all of the clinical trial sites on the continent. This year, we are going to map out 40 countries, and then next year, 15 countries to know exactly the capacity of clinical trial on the continent. This will lead to the next slide, if you don't mind. We had this meeting in Ivory Coast last 2 weeks to come together and determine from the mapping we are doing on the continent how to create the hub and spoke model. If you turn the next slide, then we'll close. I know I'm over time. The hub and spoke model basically is based on the capacity that we are assessing across the continent, which country that have the resource to become a hub for scientific discovery, and then they can support 10 other countries to build that capacity for clinical trial. All of these are in fulfillment of the R&D blueprint that was decided in South Africa. We are now implementing it fully, connecting African scientists together, working with them. We have scientists into 10 different big groups that are doing different research as a source of knowledge to guide research on the continent that will enable clinical trial. For the sake of time, I will start, but the slides are available. You can see some of our work we have done in terms of community engagement. We work with communities. Around 17,000 people have been interviewed in 9 African countries to look at the behavior enhancers to outbreak. We are doing some work on AI. So that's some of the work we have done, and constant research is ongoing. We have around 26 clinical trials that are ongoing as I speak to you on the continent, anywhere from diagnostics to vaccine and treatment. Thank you very much, and sorry for going overboard. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fala. I don't think anybody's going to complain about you going over time because it was fascinating and very, very comprehensive. I think that COVID gave us all the shock of our lives that we were just left as a continent without access to any vaccines. And I think we can see that Africa CDC has taken very seriously the challenge to address this in a very impressive manner. So thank you so much, Dr. Fala.